This is Dumbed Down Life 19. May the 4th be with you.
Yes, this week we have a extra special show because of two reasons. We have an extended weekend, so we've got the ability to actually just waste some more time. But also, as was suggested at the beginning of the recording, it is indeed Skywalker Day. So we're putting together a slightly themed, I say slightly, a highly themed show relating to
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Not Star Trek, not Doctor Who, for a change. I think we've been doing quite a lot of Who recently. This is Star Wars.
Haven't done any Star Trek, have we?
No, I'm not really a big Trek fan.
Kind of, but not enough to be...
Not enough to talk about it as much as
what we're just about
are going to be with Star Wars. Yeah. Now, both Lance and I are old enough to have seen Star Wars. I'm saying this cautiously. Because did you see Star Wars at the cinema?
I didn't see the first one. I've seen Empire. I have seen Star Wars at the cinema,
but not the first time.
Not the first time.
So
round.
not in 1977.
No, because I was 5.
Yeah, I probably don't actually remember seeing it at the cinema the first time around, but it certainly wasn't the first film I'd seen. My first memories of Star Wars were more from Return of the Jedi, when my brother and I were playing around the back of the cinema. And this particular cinema, not like the modern day multiplex things, this just had the main screen, and when you're around the back you could actually hear the sounds from the film.
Oh wow.
So we were playing around in the car park and ran up to the wall and just listened to the sound effects of Star Wars. But yeah, we saw those at the cinema the first time round.
I think the first one I saw was Empire.
Right.
I think definitely saw Jedi.
Yeah.
But I do dimly remember seeing Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I actually got, or my brother and I have got a large collection. Well, you say large collection or just a collection?
I've seen larger.
Yeah. We have a collection of Star Wars toys, and this is the first time I've ever actually celebrated Star Wars Day. by going up into the attic and waking up the wasps that are all fast asleep in the cold attic,
and whatever's died up there,
but that's another story. And brought down the Star Wars toys into the living room, and we're going through all those, and sort of, we weren't actually playing with them though, were we?
No,
we were discussing how the quality of the toys seemed to change. One of the characters that I've got is the Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper outfit, and his head is clearly smaller than the average Star Wars figure head, to accompany for the fact that it's going to have a mask over the top of it,
which is wrong.
And the mask is stretched, so when you stand him next to the other figures, it's like quite clear that the whole aren't you a little short for a Stormtrooper just wouldn't apply.
No, because he's the same height.
He's the same height, and he's just...
The mask doesn't look like the other masks for the other Stormtroopers.
No.
It's completely wrong.
And what was the other thing we were saying about how certainly some of the Return of the Jedi stuff, the characters have got not felt.
The fabric is.
It's a very sort of thick fabrically cloak. So they look, rather than action figures, they look more like.
They look like Doll's House
dolls, that's it, yeah. Because a lot of the detail of the bodywork is actually lost under this big wad of fabric.
Which doesn't sort of... It's too stiff, it doesn't sort of sit naturally on them. So it's...
But even though, when you look at the detail, I mean, the cloak had shoulders sewn into it, and the hood is the right size for the figure and so forth, but it's just... It's... because the material is the wrong scale, really.
Yeah.
It just completely
ruins
it. They have gone back with the more modern toys to moulding all of the cloaks and veils and so forth. But the strange thing with the more modern ones, you can now get half a dozen different versions of the same character in the same clothes, but in slightly different poses.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
Yeah.
I just want the straight arms and the straight legs.
They can't do anything with other than have
That's
them
it.
pointing the gun straight out or the arm straight by the side.
Yeah.
You can't sit them down, but totally unposable figures. But they're just as you remember they should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once they started making them posable, kind of lost the magic a little bit.
Yeah. 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 The other thing, the toy that had you more excited, as soon as it came out of the box, was the Star Wars Stormtrooper room guard detector.
Yeah.
Now this is a Stormtrooper who I actually had on guard, and he worked very well. I had a problem when Seth was young, Seth being my stepson, of him going downstairs and making himself a midnight feast, and sometimes he'd leave the gas on, and sometimes you'd leave the fridge door open and the milk on the side, and so you'd clean up the kitchen and go to bed, and then come down in the morning and it looked like a bomb's dropped on it. So what I actually did was I set up the Stormtrooper at the top of the stairs and then went to bed, and you'd hear him go, "There was one, set for a stun." And you just open the bedroom door.
Seth, what are you doing?
I just wanted to know what the Stormtrooper was doing out here. I was just going to the toilet. The toilet's upstairs. The Stormtrooper's halfway down the stairs. Well, I thought you'd left it there, and I was going to bring it in for you. So, go to bed. Okay.
But it worked.
But to give him credit, and then they say that some of the most devious minds are the most intelligent. What he then would do was take something and put it over the Stormtrooper. Because the motion detector then gets used to the fact that, well, it's inside the sock, so it's only going to measure any motion that occurs inside the sock.
And of course nothing else.
So the first time, there's one, Seth for son. Seth, go to bed. Oh, I was just getting myself a drink. Yep, go to bed. He goes to bed. And you don't hear it anymore. Wake up in the morning and there's a Stormtrooper with a sock over him. That would have worked, Seth, if you'd have remembered to take the sock off.
Which of course would have woke you up.
Well, yeah.
The more intelligent thing would have been to turn it off.
Turn it off, yeah, would have been another good one. But I think you even had trouble trying to turn it off.
It's got 3 settings. There's a game, the alarm, and off, and figuring out which bit's which is not
especially
easy.
in the dark. That would
Yeah,
have been too
absolutely.
Good. Yeah. Now, so we've covered sort of the introduction to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered our foray into. We did actually have a lightsaber duel today, didn't we?
And I won because I broke your lightsaber twice.
Oh, that's nothing to be proud of. Twice. Yeah. Guess which character I was playing. But hang on, you had a green lightsaber.
I was Yoda. I'm short enough.
Yoda never fought against Darth Maul.
Well, no, he didn't. Slight anachronism.
Nobody with a green lightsaber fought against Darth Maul. Because the green lightsaber.
What colour was Qui-Gon Jinn's? I think you'll find that was green.
Don't know.
I think you'll find he was green. Obi-Wan's was blue.
Obi-Wan's was blue.
Qui-Gon Jinn's was green.
I don't know.
I think it is.
We'll have to look at that. In that case, you were playing Qui-Gon Jinn.
So you should have killed me.
Yeah. But it was more like a reenactment from something from Monty Python. Oh. Not a flesh wound.
I've had worse. Come on, you yellow belly.
Yeah, some of the things from the films, though, I think not outtakes, the missed mistakes, I think, are some of the favourites.
The Stormtrooper hitting his head.
In Episode 4, A New Hope. For those of you, and there can't be that many that don't know this by now, that have missed this, as R2-D2 and C-3PO are left alone while the others go to rescue the princess, the Stormtroopers come in, but these space doors,
blast doors,
don't go up particularly high. While most of the stormtroopers actually duck their heads to come through, one poor soul who clearly can't see properly through this helmet bangs his head. Now there's a misconception that goes with that, because if you watch it on the standard screen, as he bangs his head, somebody says, "See to him."
Yep.
And it looks for all the world as if they're talking about the poor sod who's just banged his head. But actually, in the widescreen version, you see that he's referring to the downed Imperial guard that was in the control centre in the first place.
I've never realised that.
That's
news to me.
The other one, which is painful to watch once you've realised it, is back in the Luke's house. The blue milk.
The blue milk, yeah.
Because in the past we all drank blue milk. Luke picks up the milk with one hand, and then as the camera angle changes, the milk mysteriously jumps from one hand to the other,
doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
I can't. There's plenty of others in it, but I can't think of any.
Not off the top of my head. No, they're the two that sort of really spring to mind.
Those are the two main ones.
Yeah.
There was supposedly at the end of Star Wars where, as Luke is getting out of the X-wing,
he says carry, doesn't he?
He says carry instead of Leia, but
I think he says hey. I honestly do think he says hey in an excited manner. I don't think he says carry.
Yeah, it just wouldn't. Why would you do that? It just doesn't even.
It doesn't make sense, because
if you're playing excited, you wouldn't be excited to see Carrie. You'd be
excited to see Leia,
the princess, or Leia, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's another one. The actual quality of the original set of films when they went on to VHS meant that this was before they were digitally remastered. The masking that was used was very poor, especially in the Hoth battle scene.
Yeah, you could see the AT-ATs through the
window pillars,
canopies, the window pillars.
But with that, it was such a fast cut scene and so forth that you really had to be.
You could only really see it if you watched it over and over again and looked for it, or if it was on a freeze frame.
Yeah. Which
on a VHS video, you freeze frame and it's jerking all over the place anyway.
Big
so
line through the middle of it anyway.
You wouldn't have seen it, no.
And by the time it got to DVD, I suspect it was remastered and
fixed it.
About the only place you're going to see it is on the extras disc.
To say, oh look what we did.
Yeah.
It used to look like this, and now it looks like this.
Yeah.
Talking of the sort of remastering and stuff, the special editions. I was looking today at the sort of what had changed, what had been done, and there was the big controversy about Han shooting first.
The shot that spawned 1,000 YouTube
complaints. Yeah. Should Greedo have shot at Han to sort of give Han a reason to shoot him as opposed to just shooting him?
There's all sorts of things in Star Wars that just make you cringe.
The thing that bugged me about it is how poorly done it was.
Yeah.
Because there's a shot when they're in the cantina in the first for the first film, Episode 4, where Greedo's getting ready to shoot Han Solo for the bounty the price on his head.
Yeah.
And in the remastered version, Greedo shoots first, and Han moves his head to the right badly.
Yeah. Point blank range, he misses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Personally, I think they should have left it alone. It was a change that wasn't really needed.
Yeah. But another thing that sort of made me cringe, not so much about the original. Well, okay, if we're sticking to the original trilogy at the moment, Jedi was just entirely cringeworthy.
Most of it was.
Most of it.
There's some certain really good parts of Jedi that tend to get overshadowed because of the many cringeworthy parts of Jedi.
Yeah.
The whole thing with Vader, Luke, and the Emperor.
Yeah.
that whole section of trying to tempt Luke over to the dark side and replace Vader, and that was really good. But it does tend to get forgotten in amongst the Ewoks.
While the Muppets were fighting, while the Muppets were having their battle down in Sherwood Forest.
Sherwood Forest, yeah. The Ewoks thing kind of annoyed me a little bit.
See, of the original trilogy, I think that Empire was my favourite.
Definitely. Without a shadow of a doubt.
It ended on a downer.
Well, it's the middle section, isn't it? And the middle part of any 3-act play. And if you look at the first 3 films as a 3-act play, you've got the first section which sets the characters up and the situation.
Yeah.
You've got the second act where traditionally everything goes to hell, and you've got the third act which is the resolution and the heroes win through.
Which is the interesting thing with the prequels, because you have the introduction of the characters, you have everything goes bad, and then for the third one everything gets worse.
Gets a little bit worse, yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I think a lot was learnt from 1, that they didn't make mistakes for 2 and 3. 1 being the very first one. Sorry, not the first one of the prequels.
Right. We're talking episodes 1.
We're talking episode 1.
Sorry.
Phantom Menace.
Yeah. Phantom
Menace wasn't particularly strong.
No, and again, a lot of that was down to introducing new characters. Because although 4 of the characters we've seen before, they were all of them in completely different guises.
Yeah.
Because you've got Obi-Wan Kenobi. You've seen him before, but not as a young, proper Jedi as opposed to an old man.
Yeah.
You've got Anakin Skywalker. You know he becomes Darth Vader, but at that point he was a 9-year-old obnoxious little brat.
Yeah.
And then you've got R2 and 3PO, which were kind of similar characters.
And the fifth of the four,
Yoda, I guess, wasn't he? Was he in the first one?
Oh, I was thinking Palpatine.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So the sixth of the four would have been Yoda.
Yeah.
I think Yoda was.
He was.
Yes, he was, because he won't. Your apprentice, he will not be.
Yeah, wouldn't train. Yeah, that's right.
He is too old. Don't do Yoda voice. Mental note: don't do Yoda. Yeah, but a lot of concepts that were sort of brought up in episode 1 tended to get. You know what I'm going to say.
You're thinking of the midichlorians here, aren't you?
Who was the father? There was no father. Oh, why did you do that? Why did there have to be no father?
Bringing the sort of religious thing into it.
Bringing in religious thing into it, and the midichlorians are these little things that live in your system, and we're talking, and
they create the Force, and it's like no, leave it some mystical thing.
Were they ever mentioned again after episode 1?
Don't believe they were. No. No.
It's all just gone.
Shame he didn't take notice of the complaints about Jar Jar Binks, really, wasn't it?
Well, Jar Jar was used as the scapegoat, which I think was very nice. I liked the way that it's like Palpatine was able to subtly sort of suggest that, of course, if Queen Amidala was here, she would certainly. Oh yeah, Misa got a good mental note to
not do the Jar Jar voice.
Jar Jar big mental note, no voices. I did like the way that Jar Jar was set up to be.
He's the fall guy, isn't he?
Because everybody hated him, and it's a case. Well, when it comes down to it, the whole thing was all Jar Jar's fault,
which is fine by me.
Yes,
I think. From a technical point of view, the whole point of Jar Jar Binks was to see if he could create a believable computerized character.
Yeah.
Because if they got it right with him, then they could do Yoda fighting.
Yep.
They wouldn't have done Yoda as a risk.
Yeah.
So they tested out the technology, so to speak, with Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar, yep. Yoda pinball, as I like to. I am so surprised they never released a Star Wars Yoda pinball, because the way he bounces around the screen. It was start with kind of laughably awesome kind of. Yeah,
I can
okay.
remember seeing it at the cinema with I went with a friend, and both of us were edge of our seats. Yes,
Yeah.
we've been waiting for this moment, and to see him sort of bounce around like a little green dynamo thing, and it was awesome.
Up he walks with his walking cane, and then he opens up the robe and
Force grabs his
lightsaber. And yeah, excellent. So from all 6 of the films,
Mhm.
favourite Star Wars moment
Favourite Star Wars
from
moment?
any of the 6 films?
Probably Yoda, actually. Quite honestly, probably Yoda.
The first fight with Dooku,
Yeah,
as opposed to the fight with Palpatine.
Palpatine, yeah, because you'd already seen Yoda fighting. That, I think, yeah, that was probably one of the moments that really sort of got me mega excited.
So I think that really we're slightly biased because we've seen the original trilogy so many times that perhaps there isn't a favourite moment from that
Because it's too familiar. Possibly.
Whereas with the other 3, you can remember which cinema you went to, who you went with when you saw it,
Probably, yeah.
and it was more of an interesting moment. See, again, my favourite moment.
It's an expectation thing, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't it? After waiting so long after the first 3 for the
Yeah.
second 3, the anticipation's higher.
Yeah. So again, my favourite part from same film, funnily enough, was when Yoda again around the survivors a perimeter create.
Really?
And you're like, oh no, don't do it! No, don't bring in the clones, you moron! No, because suddenly everything sort of fell into place.
Yeah.
As to why we ended up with the Clone Wars, because they brought the clones in to try and save them
Yeah.
from this one battle, and it was just a penny drop moment that was like. That was definitely my favourite part of all of it.
So what would your worst moment be?
Worst moment. It's either the cringing midichlorian. No, yeah. Who was the father? There was no father. It's like,
Oh dear.
why you do that? Or it's the Wookiees on Kashyyyk swinging down from the vines
with the Tarzan
doing the
sound.
Tarzan thing.
There was a few of those that I didn't like.
It's just this is the serious battle. The Wookiees are about to be wiped off the face of civilization, and they're beating their chests like orangutans. It's like, no, wipe them out, all of them. They are not overgrown Ewoks. These are fearsome battle creatures, and
I kind of get the impression that the Wookiees are the Klingons of the Star Wars universe. They are a warrior type race.
yeah.
And they wouldn't be swinging, pretending to be Tarzan.
Well, we are, of course, taking this far too seriously. I can see the comments now. It's meant to be a kids' film.
Well, you see, I have I disagree with that. They are kids' films, but I don't think they were initially intended as kids' films. If you look at The Empire Strikes Back, that is not a kids' film. There are parts of that are very, very dark.
The
And I
story-
don't think they're directed at kids. I don't think it was until Jedi came along that it started becoming much more aimed at kids.
Yeah.
And admittedly, all of the prequel trilogy, they're kids' movies.
But trying to follow some of the storylines for kids, even in the prequels.
The politics and all that, and the manoeuvring within the prequel trilogy, they're not kids' subjects to follow.
No.
Excuse me. No, I don't think they're kids' things to follow. So it's kind of a sort of an in-between thing. The acting and the characters and parts of the plot lines are very childish.
Yeah.
But the underlying political side of it isn't very childish.
Yeah.
so it may get lost on a few of the kids what happened.
Yeah.
So I don't think they are kids movies, or I think they're more kids movies from a marketing and after sales merchandising selling point of view, where the real money from the movie is made. Yeah, I think there was a lot of kids elements thrown in to make sure the toys sell well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably a very cynical view, but I think it
No,
is.
no, it's. I think he probably.
But I
admit
think
that.
the storyline he wanted to do wasn't a child storyline. It was a fairly adult themed one. But he had the marketing in mind as well, so he had to childlike it.
I'm sorry, but the just terminology that Lucas wanted to make an adult film. It's like, no, that's not right.
But it's Princess Leia in the gold bikini.
Yeah. Let's just pause.
Anyway.
Because it's the story of Anakin, isn't it? He's the only character that's actually consistent across.
Again,
all of
I feel that's fairly confused as well. If you look at some of the interviews that Lucas did, he changes his opinion of what the films are about depending on what film's about to be released. Because after the first three, if you look at some of the special edition documentaries and that, he said, "Oh, it's all from the droids' point of view. The story is told."
Really?
Yeah, the story is told from the droids. They're the ones that are all the way through it, and it was very much taken from their side of it. And then when the prequels came out, he changed his mind completely and said, "No, it's always been about Anakin's story, and this is the backstory that I wanted to tell that I've not been able to."
It's interesting that it was never about Luke.
Yeah.
Because he's sort
Well,
of the
I think
main
he
character
did go on and then say it was about the Skywalker family.
Yeah.
And how the son makes different and better choices than the father, and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But his opinion of what the films are about and the whole storyline does change over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't think you can truly say what it is, and I think he sort of makes it up as he goes along.
So what interests me is, although I am a big Star Wars fan, and I have read a lot of Star
We've
Wars
done nothing but the
stuff.
last 20 minutes but complain and bitch.
Oh, no. That's the thing. You've got enough of it to be able to bitch and complain about, and certainly a lot of the comments and stuff we've been talking about wasn't complaining. I've read a lot of books, and I've read a lot of what claimed to be first draft scripts and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
That I do tend to forget what of it became, as is called, canon or true to the story.
Yeah.
What of it was fiction and what came from where. Now the battle of Vader and Obi-Wan was known to be on a volcanic planet, although it was never mentioned. Now I believe...
Yeah, where did that come from?
I believe it was mentioned in the book of the film.
Right.
Of the first film.
Oh, okay.
A New Hope.
Yeah.
But quite when, and whether I ever read that.
Yeah.
I certainly know that I read Jedi.
Well, I know in one of the documentaries I read, he did say that when they were developing the character of Vader, they had, is it Ralph McQuarrie, who did a lot of the concept art, and he did one of, he called it Vader's Home, and it was Vader on a volcanic planet.
Right.
So whether that sort of stemmed in then, and they added a bit of a backstory into the novel, I don't know.
Because the interesting thing is, it was the film first, then the books.
Well, the books came out, the novelisation came out of the first of A New Hope at the same time. It actually came out before the film was released.
Oh, did it?
About 3-4 months. So it was a very slow build before the release of the film.
Right.
And the book was one of them.
That's interesting. I know that with the prequels, the graphic novels were released.
These are Dark Horse ones, isn't it?
Yeah, very close to, if not actually on, the release date of the films.
Yeah.
That was a good thing to do. And with, was it Because now I'm starting to think of some of the other extended universe stuff, like the
Heir to the Empire.
Heir to the Empire and that sort of stuff. Shadows of the Empire is the one I was thinking of, because Shadows of the Empire was a book that was between Empire Strikes Back and Jedi.
Yes.
Have you ever read Shadows of the Empire?
I think so. Yeah. Is that Tim?
Ooh, don't ask
Timothy
me who
Zahn?
it was. No, that's not. No, it's not Timothy Zahn.
It's the same guy who wrote Heir to the Empire, isn't it?
I don't think. I don't. No, I'm not sure who it was that wrote Shadows of the Empire, because Shadows of the Empire was cast as being the biggest Star Wars thing to happen without there actually being a film.
Right.
Because there was a book released, there was a soundtrack released,
Oh, was that?
and there was a game released, all together.
I didn't know that.
As well as the Dark Horse comic
Graphic
novel, and all this, the figurines, because we've got Zizor, the figurines and so forth, and there was just no film to go with it.
Yeah.
But it was cast as being the biggest thing, because I was working at Virgin at the time, Virgin Interactive Entertainment, who at the time had LucasArts as one of their companies that they were distributing for. So we actually released Shadows of the Empire as the game, and that particular book, I really enjoyed that book, and the graphic novel on that was interesting because there's a lot of costume changes in that aren't explained in the novel, but then when you've read the book, you know why there's costume changes and scene changes, and you're able to fill in the blanks, which was really good. Zizor, actually, Prince Zizor, was a character that I took on as an
avatar
for a long time. It was interesting. Some people recognised who it was, and some people didn't. But the extended universe stuff, I got into that. The Timothy Zahn stuff, some of the Heir to the Empire stuff.
I've only read a few of the extended universe books.
With there seems to be quite often there's references to the clones of the Emperor.
Yeah.
And so I tend to sort of I went to which is the story that brings out the clones of the Emperor, and read that, so that when there are references to it in any of the other stories, you know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But a lot of the extended universe stuff you can read on its own.
Yeah. I think many years ago, I read one, Han Solo at Star's End.
Right.
And that was a long time ago. I read that.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you what it was about.
Yeah.
Other than Han Solo being
at the end of a star.
Star's End. Yeah. But no, I couldn't tell you what it was about, and I don't know where it was set. But that's one I do remember reading. Heir to the Empire, I read. And that's pretty much it, I think.
See, I'm bad with knowing the names of the books and so forth, which is what makes this whole thing worse, because I know some of the stuff. There are stories that explain the origins of the Death Star. There is and the Sun Crusher.
Now, does the origins of the Death Star in the books match up with the origins of the Death Star from the films?
You don't see the origins of the Death Star in the films. You simply see the guy stood there with the plans.
With the plans, yeah.
But you don't know that it's actually from a certain star cluster that hides the fact that they've got this R&D system going on.
Without having read any other books, I made the assumption from the films that the guys with the wings developed the Death Star.
Guys with the wings.
Yeah. How nerdy are we? I can't remember.
Not nerdy enough. Yes.
Yes. Fantastic.
I can't remember the name of the characters.
But those things.
Geonosians.
Geonosians, yeah.
Damn
it. But you get the impression from there that they're the ones that developed the Death Star.
But you do only ever see him holding it, saying.
Well, you see it on the big wall at the back, don't you, rotating around?
Yeah.
And it isn't until the end of the film where he gives it to Dooku, Darth Tyrannus,
yeah.
For safekeeping, and then he goes back and obviously starts having it built.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got the impression they developed it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's all impressions. But it's some of the books cover things like that. There's also a weapon called the Sun Crusher, which you fire into a sun, and it causes it to implode, taking out
the entire system.
And this was developed by the same team that developed the Death Star,
right.
And all this sort of thing. There's the Kessel Run, and Kessel itself. Kessel is never mentioned in any of the films.
Oh yes, it is.
Beyond it,
3PO mentions it quite a few times about being
Spice
sent
mines.
to the spice mines
Yes.
of Kessel. And
Yep. Well, there were stories that are based in the spice mines of Kessel,
right.
and this sort of. But I couldn't tell you for the life of me which books. It's really infuriating. But there's so much extended universe stuff. You can go way back to the times of that answers the questions. Why is there only 2 Sith?
Yes. Oh Christ! I can. Given enough time, and I'm not going to pause for long enough, but I could remember the name of the Sith Lord.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I can't.
But Zara Khan.
No, there was a Darth somebody.
Right, I thought it was well, that was mentioned in any of the films?
No,
or?
no, it wasn't mentioned in any of the films, but there was a Darth somebody or other. Darth somebody or other doesn't quite have the same ring, does it? I'll admit.
Because originally there were more than 2 Sith, but
yes.
it was sort of once the Sith had been defeated, then it was a case of look, you're only allowed to have 2 now.
Yeah, let's hide for a long time.
Okay, well that's just if we keep it as 2, then nobody needs to just make sure you keep passing it on and passing it on and
until such time.
Yeah.
And then at last we can reveal ourselves to the Jedi.
That's another phrase that I don't know why, but it's always struck me as being this like Darth Maul opening his robes and going, woo! At last we can reveal ourselves to the Jedi. Woo! Oh, ew! Oh, he's got that tattooed as well.
Oh no! No, there are some very bad, clunky dialogue in the films. Notably the love scenes between Anakin and Padme. Kind of felt a bit shoehorned in.
Hayden Christensen is not
the greatest actor in the world, is he though?
But then neither was Mark Hamill. But then it's just the story. It
was clunky, very clunky. Remind me why we like these films again. We've done nothing but slag them.
We've grown up with them.
I certainly feel the first 3 films were a lot better than the second 3, but is that an age thing? Because I'm older now. Or the expectation was never going to be met.
I don't really see. I don't have a preference.
I've got to admit,
I would gladly. I would struggle to watch The Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one really that
I struggle to watch Jedi.
Yeah, Phantom Menace and Jedi
are the two
that I could really do without.
Or fast forward past the crap bits.
Yeah, but certainly
I thought the last one
I really liked.
Revenge of the Sith was very good.
Revenge of the Sith was very good.
Really did enjoy that.
I was actually quite surprised at the graphic detail of Anakin on fire.
Yeah.
That seemed a little
too much,
but obviously not for us. But it's
again not a kids' movie.
What was the rating on it?
Probably PG.
So going back to what you were saying,
shut up.
Was it PG plus?
Contains dismembered and burning people. Warning: contains smoking, clothing, and
and the sort of bulging eyes, and it's like, ew, that wasn't too nice. When I originally saw some sort of pre-release pictures in one of these magazines, and it was like, no, that's fake. That they'd never put that in there. They did.
And they did, yeah.
And when he was lying on the table becoming Darth Vader,
yeah,
and screaming for his life as they're sticking the robot limbs to him, it's like, oh, this hurts.
Yeah.
You can just imagine the sort of
the
kids
kind of really worked
cinema.
To completely alter your perception of Darth Vader.
Yeah. So when he comes in at the beginning of A New Hope, you go, "Yay!"
But it does. It shows you why he's as bad and evil as he is, what he's been through.
Yeah.
From the innocent, obnoxious little git of a 9-year-old.
Was he 9?
Yeah. Well, according to Weird Al, he was.
Yeah.
Because he was only 9 and she was 14. And then going through the whole thing of what he went through to become and end up as being Darth Vader.
Yep.
Like you say, now the 6 movies are done, it is very much Anakin's story.
Yep.
And you've got the whole progression all the way through from him being discovered as the Chosen One through to his training of being the Chosen One, the fall from grace, and then the eventual redemption at the end of it.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a bit wordy, wasn't it?
It was.
Blimey.
Well, we've done what? Just over 40 minutes.
Have we really?
We have.
Without struggling.
Without struggling, and without the extra music, because I know you wanted to play a bunch of Star Wars related music.
I did.
But
what was just very quickly? What was your most confusing Star Wars moment?
Confusing Star Wars moment.
Where you had to sit there and think, wait, what? Eh?
I think I never got the whole Trade Federation thing in the first movie until I'd seen it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Um,
Mine's really, really fleeting. It's the bit where Yoda says something about not if anything to say about it I have. in the
Council.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
He's talking to Palpatine as he's been disfigured and becoming the Emperor.
Yeah.
And Palpatine says to him something about it's all over for you now and this, that, and the other, and I've won. And he says, not if something to say about it I have, in Yoda speak. And you think, what did you just say?
What do you mean good if Palpatine had gone, sorry, what?
What? It was a distraction technique so he could get in there. It's like, I'll just speak garbage, you'll go what, and I'll kill you.
There was a section just after Palpatine has been struck by the lightning and disfigured, and he's talking to Anakin, and the voice thing there seems to go all a bit weird. Where he's sort of chewing his what a rip, and he's talking what?
But then again, he had just been hit by lightning and completely screwed.
Yeah, but it sounded very digitized voice. Rather than it being any kind of acting and voice that obviously he uses for the Emperor further on, it sounded like he'd done it perhaps without the voice sounding the way that Lucas wanted it, and then he's gone in and said, well, let's
tweak it a bit
here and tweaking and there, and
because we all know he can't leave things alone. He has to keep tweaking.
Yeah. So what's going to be the next release?
Hopefully with the missing scenes from the first one that he keeps saying he's not going to put in, but he will do eventually. Wasn't there some film scenes of Luke at the bar and?
Well, they're all on the special editions.
I thought there was still some that he hadn't put on them.
There's a lot on the special editions, like stuff with him and Biggs, and a whole bunch of their mates, and sort of. Typical as with most films, they explain a whole bunch of stuff that later you find out anyway.
Doesn't it?
And it's because, why do you
guess
tell us
they were
that
probably
twice?
needed in there if he wasn't going to do the other 2.
If he wasn't going to do the other 2, or if budget ran out for some of the other things that they were explaining. But it's I don't think there's anything that way that's missing really.
There's bound to be another release. There's going to be like a 10-disc box set.
Yeah,
I can see it coming.
Yeah,
with all 6 films and about 100 hours worth of extra stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully stuff we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
But that will come eventually. Maybe. I mean, what have we had now? 77, wasn't it?
77. Yeah.
So we've had 30 years.
Yep.
So
35 is
35.
Not a biggie, not really.
Well, I guess
years.
the 40 years is coming, but I mean,
Ouch.
I doubt he'll get to 50 years himself, would he?
I don't know.
Probably not, but there's not really another milestone coming up for a while to warrant another release, is there?
No.
So,
but then the franchise itself is carrying on now because of the television program
that's coming. Well, you've got the Clone Wars cartoon and the live action television that's coming out.
Well, the live action television.
Oh, have you not heard?
No.
They're doing a live action one. After the Clone Wars cartoon has been done, after he's got rid of Indiana Jones, he's going to do a live action one of a TV series based upon some of the minor characters. It's not going to be like the Obi-Wans or the Lukes or anything like that, but it'll probably be things like Boba Fett's story.
Yeah.
Or
certainly, again, when I was...
I mean, maybe it might even do like a Rogue Squadron thing.
I was a member of the Hyperspace, which is the members-only Star Wars...
On the website
thing. And this was during the releases of the prequels 1, 2 and 3, and what they had was cartoon strips.
Yeah,
fantastic cartoon strips, because they were running, but just the timing was just right, that as it came towards the end of the cartoon strip, it actually showed you scenes from the next film, but from the perspective of other characters.
Oh wow.
So some of these storylines were from the various Jedi. Not too hot on the names of the other Jedis, but
I know there's Kidi Adi Mundi or something, which is the guy with a really tall head.
The guy with the tall head. But they were following the different stories of some of these different Jedi, and they even went through the section of Palpatine being kidnapped by
General
Grievous, and the first attempt from the Jedi to go up there and retrieve him.
Right.
Now, if you watch the extra footage from the Revenge of the Sith...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you watch the extra footage from the Revenge of the Sith DVD, you'll see that they actually have the execution of one of the Jedis.
That's right, yeah.
And that's part of what this cartoon strip led up to. And so, watching that, there's a lot of backstory and stuff that must have been discussed and drawn out at some point, and then Lucas goes, okay, well, you can know that bit, you can know this bit, and possibly the cartoonists writing this knew the story right up until that point,
and then didn't know
and weren't told anything more, but it tied in nicely to actually make the whole thing stream along.
Wow.
When you're watching Execute Order, what's the number?
Yes, no, can't
See,
remember.
not a geek, don't know the number. I want to say 42, it wasn't 42.
No, it wasn't. Or was it?
66.
Yes.
When they execute Order 66 and you see the cutscenes of all the Jedis being killed,
yeah,
another one of the cartoon strips actually explained where the Jedis were. So there's me watching the film for the first time at the movie theatre, and they cut to the planet which had been on the cartoon strip, and it's like, but that's going to be when... Oh!
Now, the thing is, there was one of those scenes that it's the blue Twi'lek.
Yep.
She's
in a forest full of
big flowers.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I know what planet that is.
Go on then.
It's Corellia. Now, the only reason I know that is because I played Star Wars Galaxies, and when you go to Corellia,
I don't think it was Corellia.
I think it was. You go to Corellia and there's big flowers everywhere, just like that, big Triffid type things.
I don't think it was Corellia.
But I think it was.
Can't remember the story from the I can't remember the story from the cartoon now because it was such a long time ago. But I
think it is.
I have to look at that.
But we'll agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, with this new television series coming up, I am very tempted to sign up with Hyperspace again. Especially if it gives you the opportunity to go back and look at those cartoon strips again. Because having now seen the prequel films,
you can fill
the gaps in again.
Yeah.
What I'm reading at the moment is a story about the clone troopers taken between episodes 2 and 3.
Right.
and this does not mention any of the key characters at all.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to know the Star Wars universe, really.
Could be something in its own right.
Yeah. And this was written by a lady who comes from Portsmouth. And she's very well known out in the US, but it's very difficult to even find her books over here, which is unusual. And I was reading because she used to have a live journal, and she was writing a lot about how she'd written these books. And when you're reading the book, you get a real sort of sense of what's going on. And she was saying that to get an idea of how much a 500-pound backpack weighs, she got one, stuck it on her back, and tried standing up with it.
You've told me about her before. Isn't she the one that's sort of really militaristic, and she's got the whole sort of
spot on
manoeuvres and the command signs and sort of tactics they would use and squad formations and all of that. She's got that all down.
She's got it all down.
Yeah.
To make
I remember you
the
talking
clone
about her
trooper,
before.
because one of the things that I love about Star Wars is the fact that the clone troopers, you're cheering them on.
All the while knowing they're
Order
becoming
66.
Yeah.
And then it's like, they're only doing as they're told. So it's like,
and all the time you know that they end up becoming the stormtroopers.
Yeah. But there's a sort of big question mark which must be answered somewhere in the extended universe, because Han Solo was training to be a stormtrooper, I believe.
Yeah. Now, my logic on that one is the same as a lot of people complained how everything looked nice and new and high tech in the prequels, and then sort of went backwards for the original trilogy, because obviously it was the 1970s when they were made. The logic Lucas used there was the fact that this was now a galaxy in war, and things regressed a little bit because of necessity of producing mass things to keep a galactic war going. It was a case of a galaxy just pumping out cheap munitions, and that so the technology drops off. So I would imagine that
clones are quite expensive,
or the clone production stopped completely. So therefore you then started recruiting people, which would allow people like Han Solo and that to be training to join the Imperial Navy. That's how I justify that, and that's how I think
it kind of
makes sense.
It would be interesting to see how the extended universe actually covers it as well. But I think a lot of the Han Solo stories,
because it does explain why stormtroopers are a crap shot and the clone troopers are pretty good.
When you're reading the stories about the clone troopers and some of the more elite squads of clone troopers who are sort of bred in a different batch to be leaders and so forth, you think, how did the Empire ever lose? But they've got this shortened life time built into them, so they've been raised in, was it double time?
So they triple, quadruple time or something.
So they burn out. What burns bright burns quickly.
Half as long, or twice as bright for half as long, or something.
And then that sort of thing. So they were really good and they got everything started, but after that, we can just use fear to keep the guys in sorts with the
put a guy in a white suit, tell him he's a clone trooper, people will shit themselves and
absolutely and the Death Star itself and the reputation of the Empire is enough to keep everything in line.
Absolutely.
And after saying that we've done 40 minutes, that's an extra 15.
Fantastic.
But we did actually put something else into the feed a little bit earlier in the week.
Oh, that's right, we did. Yes.
We did, didn't we? And I've tested it, and it's still working.
Right. It worked when I tested it as well.
So, should you have any comments about Star Wars?
You can now call us
on
07092 274 759.
And that will work, because I know that we actually... Well, some people tried to call us on the old number and it didn't work, and we never knew because they couldn't get through.
It was continually engaged.
Continually engaged, and they must have thought we were very popular and just not answering and just not actually putting any of the recordings out there. But no, that is it. It's 07092 274 759, and just leave us a little message on there, and almost certainly we'll get onto most likely we'll get onto the
most likely
most
we'll get
likely.
on to next week's show. You can also email,
which is ddl.podshow@gmail.com,
and you can visit the website, which is ddl.podshow.com,
which is still the original
website. We haven't changed it yet.
Yeah, for those of you that did watch the Dumbed Down live the other day, that's the general style that we're going on for, but we're just not ready yet.
Probably another couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, possibly another couple of weeks. Just
it all depends whether we get the domain registered, doesn't it, Darren?
Yes. And you can follow us on Twitter, and I've forgotten why our Twitter is. It
Dumbed Down Life.
Is the whole thing, isn't it? Dumbed Down
Just
Life is our
Dumbed Down
name
Life.
on Twitter. We will be back on Thursday.
Yes, we will on Thursday. Yeah.
So we did.
Possibly
Thursday,
live.
Saturday. Possibly live.
We
Yes.
have the slot booked. Whether we do it or not is another matter.
Yep. So keep an eye out on Twitter and on
LiveJournal
to see whether we're going to be doing a live one or not. Because we did have a lot of fun with the other one the other week.
Yeah, terrifying but fun.
Yeah. So the next one hopefully won't be quite so terrifying for us.
And hopefully more fun.
Yeah. Thank you. You have been listening to me, Darren.
Me, Lance.
And may the 4th
be with
you. Oh, because it's not with me.